Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Rowe. I'm back. I'm welcoming you all back to the MAS Summit Part 2 of 4. We're thrilled to have everybody back and to have our online audience back. I was just asking people how the lunch was. Whoops. How was the lunch? It was good. You're all good eaters, good New York eaters. There we go. As you saw, we've organized this into different kinds of blocks. And so the first block this morning was the City of Possibilities. And as I heard someone say at lunchtime, okay then, we've got the possibility stuff nailed. Lots of choices. Fabulous participants to give us a range of the whole connection that we're making between the spatial city and how the city actually functions and performs economically and socially and all that thing. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about a city by design. And as you've heard, MAS has 3 things that we're really focusing on to go into our 125th anniversary in 2018. And the second one is a city by design. And when we talk about a city by design, we're not just meaning the aesthetics of design. We're talking about intentionality. A couple of years ago, we published a report called The Accidental Skyline that you heard a little bit about this morning, and you'll hear more about it this afternoon. We're talking about how do you actually think about intentionally the kinds of outcomes that you want from the city. And how do you make that happen on purpose? So that's what for us a city by design is being thoughtful and intentional and getting all the right tools in place so that you can actually have transparent process, public process, excellent design, of course, and how that all fits together and gets integrated. So we know technology is important to that, and so we have a great tech panel to talk about that. In the lobby downstairs, you saw we've got a couple of fabulous exhibitions, and we're really appreciative of the folks that have made that possible. One of them is called the Uni Project, which is this, I know it's fabulous, isn't it? It's a fabulous portable library, bringing the notion of integrating public space with reading and with information. And we appreciate Leslie being here with us for the 2 days and specially curating that fabulous Uni reading room. So by all means, I noticed at lunchtime, many of you had already discovered that. And I've seen Leslie in action in various communities around this city and others. It's just a wonderful project. So we're very happy to have her. Similarly, there's a photography exhibit, and I know you saw the wonderful photos that James and Carla Murray did that was underneath I know, weren't they fabulous? And their book's coming out soon. That was underneath Jeremiah Moss's talk. Also downstairs, there's a series of photographs of an exhibit by Will Ellis on Abandoned NYC. And then the other thing that you'll see downstairs is a partnership we have with IDEO and with the MAS Urbanists, which are our younger, hipper members of MAS, very important, asking you for your own views, sort of a provocation on what a key neighborhood and citywide assets are. So that's what's downstairs when you went and got your lunch, and you'll be going back there for a drink afterwards. So we're going to, as I suggested, move into this section on a city by design and hear about all the different ways in which we approach that notion, that principle that we want a city on purpose by design. So would you welcome, please, and we're very fortunate today to have with us here in the audience several of the MAS board. Many of you know that, and I said earlier this morning, that we are the oldest civic organization. That means we have a board. We are a 501c3, we're a nonprofit, and we have been led by many, many, many esteemed New Yorkers over the generations, in fact, and we continue to be. And as you heard, Vince Cipolla has made a transition from being a president to actually being on the board, and we have a number of board members. You heard from Carol Coletta, you heard from Vishaan Chakrabarti, both board members. We have many with us today, and we appreciate their participation not only substantively in the organization, but financially to help us make sure that we have the resources to be able to fulfill our mission. So would you welcome, please, the chair of the MAS board, whose passion is New York and design. Would you welcome, please, Fred Iseman.
Thank you, Mary. Before I introduce Dan Doctoroff, I think there's some slides that are going to run behind me of some public spaces. This is not New York, in case you hadn't guessed that. Okay, that's Mumbai, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about cultural wealth and public spaces, and forgive me, it's a bit of a confessional narrative. That's St. Petersburg. Public spaces are a form of public wealth. And if you think about them as a form of public wealth, they are a very democratic form of wealth. They're free, they're open to everyone. They enhance the lives of all citizens, and they raise the quality of life of everyone. You don't have to be rich to go there. and you can enjoy them, and I think derive hope and inspiration and sometimes adventure from going to them. And I just want to talk a little bit about the idea of about how architecture came to me and what I think New York City needs to do. I'm very lucky. I grew up in New York City as the child of two discrete cultural gluttons. I had an aunt and uncle who were great painters, a godfather who was a great photographer, and I would come home to find large chunks of the New Yorker staff, editors of the New York Review, writers, painters, opera singers, great actresses, whole departments of professors, David Smith, Leonard Bernstein, Mike Nichols, Irene Worth, with a scotch in their hand or a plate full of brisket. Everybody in my family, in my immediate family, wrote and published, everyone. It was expected. At 6, I was taken to see Ethel Merman and Annie Get Your Gun. At 10, to see Richard Burton at Hamlet. At 11, to see Tolkien at Oxford. At 12, to see Nureyev dance with Fontaine. And I went to both Mets from about the age of 6. By 14, I was in a cheap rented tux at Glyndebourne in England, and I was reeling at my first King Lear at Stratford. My father knew and recited every word written by his law clients Cole Porter, Vladimir Nabokov, and Robert Lowell. I inherited all this. It was a cultural fortune. I came from a vastly culturally overprivileged background. And it wasn't earned. Because there are no inheritance taxes on cultural wealth, and division amongst the heirs does not diminish the fortune. In New York, I culturally came of age. Here I encountered, as I said, the Met, Maria Callas, the late quartets, a moving reading of Samson Agonistes, Dante, Spencer, St. Augustine, the BAM, all intermixed with Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan's The Stones, and at the Electric Circus. Not to mention Don Giovanni, Wozzeck, Chekhov, Puccini, and Strauss. When I could no longer afford the aisles and was reduced to buying standing room or upper balcony tickets, I could sneak into the orchestra at intermission. And in later years, when I could afford decent seats, a brilliant friend broadened my compass to BAM, to the Almeida and the Donmar in London, and to mention, kickboxing to the strains of a loud Asian ensemble in the shade of a Cambodian tree. I don't think I've ever had occasion, before I thought about this last night, to appraise how much I was given. I have much more respect for people who did not have the advantages that I had, who, without the intellectual banquet set before me, independently edified and immersed themselves as if their lives depended on it. If I'd grown up to different parents in different circumstances, well, I may well be a total cretin, but I certainly would have been. I kid you not. So I only feel deep deference to those people from places where the intellectual banquet that is New York is not laid before them, and they have to go out and get it for themselves. Public spaces can bring someone into that world. In other words, it's an immediate and involuntary encounter with great art. Public spaces are great art. So it takes an act of volition to go to MoMA. It takes an act of volition to go to the Met. You have to make an active choice to put yourself in front of a Caravaggio or a David Smith or whatever work it is, a great film, a great play. But you don't have to do anything except going home to pass through Grand Central. And I think that New York is losing something, and its population is losing something as our public spaces diminish, and that we owe it to every citizen to have great spaces, to give them the cultural gift of great architecture, which is as great an art form, as you can see here from some of these slides, as any other art form. And that's part of what we're trying to do at MAS.